Alright, now we're going into our predictions and analysis segment of the show. And Jesse, why don't you start us off?
So first, Pats over Jets last week. I rode my Super Bowl pick, which I probably won't be able to do any much further with the 2-3 Jets. Well, why'd the Pats win?
Well, they're just on such a roll right now. Nobody can stop Wes Welker, and the Jets usually play the Pats better in the postseason than they do in the regular season, so I hopped on that bandwagon.
I'm glad you brought up Wes Welker because I didn't get a chance to see the whole game, but in the highlights I saw and looking at Wes Welker's numbers, I have a question. Why wouldn't you man Darrelle Revis up on Wes Welker? It seemed like they were in zone the entire game. Revis was off on his island, which nobody chose to visit, unless you move the island to Wes Welker, and Wes Welker was blowing past the strong safety with an obvious mismatches. Why was Darrelle Revis not manned up?
It's a question to ask Rex Ryan.
Yeah, I think he might be starting to overthink himself. I think you got to just roll with what you're good at. I'm just disappointed in the Jets right now.
Yeah, they're not playing nearly as good as they should be. And then next we have the Bills beating Andy Reid's Philadelphia Eagles. As you can see, he's handling it very well. And what do you have to say about that game?
Before everybody jumps on Michael Vick, I did watch this entire game, and he was absolutely hung out to dry by his teammates. His offensive line weren't communicating with each other. They were letting free rushers through, which resulted in picks and tip balls. Jason Avant was responsible for 2 key turnovers, one of which was on their game-time drive, where Vick was marching the ball down the field. I mean, Vic is playing out of his mind, but nobody's noticing because they're losing and he's getting no help from his teammates. It's a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
And the D is still just...
You can't stop anything that has to do with any running back.
I mean, because what they're realizing is when you play the wide 9 and put your ends out on each sideline and have them run at the quarterback, in order to fill those gaps, you need men at linebacker and safety, and their linebackers and safeties have not stepped up for them. They either need to change their scheme or change their personnel.
I think the scheme would be the first to change because they've spent all of their money.
Yeah, it also might not have been the best idea for Coach Reid over here to put his offensive line coach in charge of his defense. Everybody thought it was a good idea at the time. Not so much now.
No. Alright, next we have the Raiders beating the Texans in their sentimental victory in Houston. What do you have to say about that?
I'm not going to say that I knew that Al Davis was going to kick the bucket when I picked the Raiders, and I'm not going to say I'm happy either, but they were playing very inspired due to his death. Darius Hayward-Bay is suddenly looking like a #1 wide receiver. It makes no sense. Michael Huff is getting game-winning interceptions. This team really looks galvanized under Hugh Jackson right now, and it looks like them and the Chargers alone in the AFC West.
And the tide of that game changed once Mario Williams left the game. Once you lose your best defensive player, you tend to start giving up a lot more plays.
Out for the year now with the same injury that Elvis Dumerville had last year, torn pectoral, on a pretty normal-looking play.
Yeah, he just grabbed the quarterback's helmet and just tore it.
Should the Texans watch out for the Titans now in the division heading down the stretch?
I think they're going to have to. All their good players are going by the wayside if they don't string together at least a couple of wins while they're healing up.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting race that not a lot of people anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the Niners over the Bucks. I did not expect the Niners to wax the Bucks in the fashion that they did, 48-3 at home.
It was one of the more glorious 49er performances since the days of Joe Montana and Steve Young and Jerry Rice.
Indeed.
It was beautiful. The defense just stifling.
I mean, they confused Josh Freeman to a point that I've never seen another defense do. He looked like his age. He looked like a 23-year-old quarterback. They were throwing confusing zones at him. Carlos Rogers is looking like an amazing investment, wearing Nate Clement's number, but not wearing his disappointment. And can I
price
just...
tag.
That's right. And can I say that Alex Smith is officially back? Comeback player of the year, put it down, seal it up, the race is over. Comeback player of the year is Alex Smith. Jim Harbaugh has figured out how to use him. He has figured out how to get him focused and motivated and, most important, calmed and accurate. He is absolutely putting on a clinic. He's the 3rd rated quarterback in the league right now. Who had that coming?
You heard it here first. Comeback player of the year, Alex Smith.
Yep.
Where else are you going to get this information? I don't know.
And coach of the year, Jim Harbaugh, while we're at it.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good guess right about now. He's killing it. Alright, now we're going into our Week 6 picks. Jesse, why don't you go over the list for us?
First of all, the game of the week we have is the Niners at Lions. Well, a shock to all of us.
Especially me. Not him. He's a Niners fan.
Yes, I am. And it is for that reason only that I have the Niners. I am scared to death of the Lions right now. But I have to believe that Harbaugh and Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator, are going to put together a plan to make somebody other than Megatron beat you. Put 3 guys on him. Put 4 guys on him. I don't care. Leave Burleson, Best, and whoever else wide open. Do not let Megatron beat you. I think they'll do something along those lines, and look out for Alden Smith, the rookie linebacker, to be putting pressure on Matthew Stafford, hitting him, getting him out of his rhythm.
Alright, me and Mr. Reed over here both have Detroit winning this game. Like, if the Niners go ahead and just send everybody Megatron's way, it's going to free up a lot of room for Burleson and Titus Young, the pretty impressive young wide receiver. And I'm thinking Mr. Alex Smith is going to be on his butt with the other Young, Willie Young, who's way more impressive than I thought he would ever be. He's just a pass rush specialist. Averill, everybody in that.
He's one of 8 or 9.
They just have
cycle in
nine interchangeable defensive linemen that can all just rearrange your bouquet. All right, and then the next game, Jesse, what do we got?
Andy Reid's Eagles at the division-leading Washington Redskins.
I got that one. I picked that. Rewind it, check the old episodes.
That is true.
I picked it. And then
I have the Eagles. I continue to think that they're going to turn it around. They're too talented. Vic is still playing out of his mind. If they just run the ball more with both he and Shady McCoy, and I think the Redskins are a house of cards. Grossman will be a Asante Samuel highlight reel waiting to happen.
Well, one of those cornerbacks better become on a highlight reel sometime to justify them.
If not now, when, boys?
Yep, but both me and Mr. Reed are going with the Washington Redskins.
White flag time.
He can't even look at you. He's just ashamed. That's why he's waving the right flag, folks. He has thrown the towel in. He's giving up. I'm not giving up. I just think Washington is going to beat him. A little revenge for last year's drubbing that all fantasy owners remember all too well.
Legendary.
It was miraculous. Might be second to only Aaron Rodgers' performance this year against the Broncos. Moving on. What's the next game?
Well, those are our 2 main events. For some other notable picks we have, I have the Vikings this week at Bears because here's a radical notion. I think they're going, not necessarily they're going, I think they should make the switch at quarterback, but not to Christian Ponder, to Joe Webb, because you know Ponder is the future, but he needs to sit for a year. So let him sit for a year. McNabb is at the end of his rope. It was all Adrian Peterson last week. That's why they won. See what you have in Joe Webb. He's sort of the right-handed Tim Tebow. He's exciting. You don't quite know what you have yet. See what you have. Maybe he becomes some trade bait for you, or maybe he proves that he can be a reliable backup for Ponder down the road. Put him in. And we also are all on the upset pick of Cam and the Panthers at ATL without Julio Jones.
Yeah, Atlanta has not looked impressive at all.
No.
It's just looking hideous. They must be still reeling from Green Bay last year. I don't know what's going on. But we're all picking Carolina, and I think you should look into it.
And big picture, I think the Panthers are sort of the Bills of this year. Remember, the Bills last year were in a lot of close games, a lot of overtime games that were just heartbreakers for them, and they still ended up having a bad season. But a lot of people felt like, hey, they were in a lot of these games, and now this year you're seeing them turn those L's into W's. So I think next year the Panthers turn the corner and really make some hay in that division.
All right, and that's all we have for you in the pick segment.